Rob Williams is the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical. Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. Rob, not particularly a Taylor Swift guy. We'll get to that in a moment. How are you, Rob? Good to see you.
Doing great, guys. How are you?
Very well. Very well.
Who has stepped up most in the JT Miller absence?
I think it's got to be. I know. People are pointing to Elias Pettersson, for good reason, but I think for me it's Jake DeBrusk. I mean, this was a guy that when they brought him in and he had that rough stretch, 10 games without a goal to start the season. Brought in to play with Elias Pettersson. I think it was it took like 4 games before he was off, or 2 to 3 games before he was off that line, and like they're trying out Arshdeep Bains with Pettersson, and you're going, oh my God, here we go again. And suddenly those two seem to have chemistry, and DeBrusk I think is he's on a really good pace now, right? Like he's been on a tear, had the hat trick, a couple overtime winners. I think he's showing that he can score in multiple ways. And I think another big key though here is that, he's not replacing Miller in the lineup in the sense that he's not a center. He's not playing on the top. He hasn't replaced Miller on that line, but he has replaced Miller on the power play. Not necessarily playing the same role, but the spot opened up on the power play, and I think that's helps obviously boost his totals for the goals he's contributed on the power play. But that also, I think, kind of helps like a little bit, right? You get that power play goal. Now suddenly you're feeling better about yourself at even strength. And, I think there's a big difference when you're playing on PP2 versus when you're playing on PP1. The real opportunities to add to your totals is on the first unit.
The second unit almost never plays.
No, they stay out for a long time.
That's been the trend now.
Do we reset to the start of the season then when Miller does come back? Let's say he played tomorrow night. He won't, folks. But would you just go back to then Besser and Miller and just keep the duos back together? Or, is Besser doing enough on this line that you'd be loath to break up the trio?
Yeah, in the short term, when you bring somebody back, I think you can go, okay, we're not going to force anything. If something's working, you can stick with it, and maybe you find somebody else with Miller. But I think ultimately, we've seen enough from Miller and Besser that we know that duo is a one you probably shouldn't split up. And what a great situation they'd be in if you have DeBrusk and Pettersson. I mean, that was the plan going in, right? DeBrusk and Pettersson
2 pairings
on one line
going,
and you've got Miller and DeBrusk on the other, and you just need to find that third guy for each line. Where I don't think you don't necessarily need 3 first line players to have a really good first line, or 3 second line players to have a really good second line. You need 2, and then you need a very good complementary player. We go back to the Sedins and Burrows, right? You got 2 Hall of Famers, and you got Burrows. He put up some good numbers, but I don't know if a lot of people would say that's a bona fide number 1, first line winger, but he fit perfectly with them. It was a great complementary player.
But the way Suter's shooting, guys, is Suter, Miller, Besser a great line when he does come back? I mean, I think you just go back to that.
I got no problem with that at all. Yeah, I mean, and I think. But you have the ability to shuffle some guys in and out depending on who's going, and they've got more depth on the wing this season than they did last season. So you're not relying on Suter like it's your ride or die with Pius Suter. But yeah, that would be that seems like a good option to me. I wonder where Connor Garland fits in this. I remember our conversation from a few weeks ago of is Garland, does he go back to being with Joshua on the third line when everyone's healthy? I look at Garland as one of their best wingers. So to me, Garland's got to fit on one of those lines. And then you figure out the third line from there.
Yeah, I agree. I would put Garland with Pettersson and
totally.
DeBrusk. Of course, the other thing you got to consider there is your right shots, right? And I know some guys like to play their off wing and whatnot, and that's fine, but they have typically played Garland at right wing. They have typically played Besser at right wing. They have typically played Sherwood at right wing as well. Does Hoglander for a rental defenseman, either Marcus Pettersson or of that ilk, appeal to you, Rob?
Oof. I loathe to do the rental thing. I feel like that's something you can't go back to that well every single time. Just like you can't go to the trade your first round pick every single year. Like, to me, that's a move you've got to make, at the right time. And I think it made sense last season. Like, everything was going their way. You could see, okay, maybe this will be their year. I'd be loath to do that just for a pure rental. I think you need to get something else back. But they do need to make a decision here on Hoglander. Is this a guy that can play for Tocchet? He seemed to find a niche last season. He put up goals, especially looked good in a depth role on a third or fourth line. Somehow, he's clearly fallen out of favor early on this season. So, I think you got to. That's where the decision comes in. Like, is this just another Kuzmenko, Daniel Sprong situation? If it is, the sooner the better you move off from him, where you still got that glow of the 24-goal season from a year ago. What you don't want to do is hold on to him, ruin his confidence, play him down in the lineup, have his stats suffer, and then all of a sudden you're settling for scraps for him at the trade deadline.
And I think that's we're fast approaching that.
Let me walk you through a scenario. It's the final of the Four Nations Cup. The United States beats Canada 5-1. JT Miller has a goal and an assist. Quinn Hughes has 3 assists. Are Canucks fans disappointed?
They'd be conflicted, of course. It'd be
conflicted, or actually kind of happy? Because I would bet the latter.
Blake, my mind went in like 3 different ways when you called it the Four Nations Cup. I'm like, okay. I was like, is there a cup? Like, do we know that? Is there a trophy
for
this?
Who's to say?
What do they get? What do they get when the winning team? I don't know what. What are they? Do they trot out?
I'm sure Frank Gehry is on standby to design another trophy for them.
They've got, there's 2 editions of the World Cup of Hockey trophy.
Yeah, borrow one. Exactly.
They can go back to the old one and just throw the Four Nations
glass tower
on the back here. I'm really curious to see like how wrapped up we get into this tournament. Like I was at the I've said before, I was at the World Cup of Hockey in 2016, and I was excited because I was there and I was getting to cover the tournament with all these stars, and the tournament was loaded with stars, but it just wasn't what I hoped it would be, and I don't think people were really into it. The fact it's in February, the fact that we get a bit more build up here through the fall and winter months, I think will help hype it up a little bit. But boy, it's a short tournament, right? Like, there's just you get 3 games and then it's the final. But conversely, there's no dogs in there, right? There's no Canada Kazakhstan game that you're like, all right, let's just.
You're not going to skip past many of these, no.
Exactly.
No.
All the games I think are going to be intriguing, but it's going to be, it's going to be here and gone so quickly, and it's a brand new tournament. Like, what are we going to think of this? I think that the part that's really intriguing is that Canada might not be the favorite going into this. You look at USA's roster, they are loaded, and they're loaded at every position. I do think that nothing really gets Canadian hockey fans going more than the possibility of losing, right? Like, Canada losing. If Canada just comes in and steamrolls everyone, I think it'd be kind of boring. But you almost need a little bit of drama, a little bit of fear that Canada's going to get it knocked off its perch for this to really be a great tournament.
Yeah. You bring up a good point, though, Rob. The trophy, is it phallic or is it a receptacle? Can one drink out of it? Or are they going to get squirrely?
Frank Gehry is alive, by the way. He's 95.
Yeah, that was their go-to for whatever the last tournament they made up was called.
That was for the World Cup.
It was a World Cup?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The glass tower.
I
Glass
remember
tower.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember Brent Burns was asked in a scrum, like, do you know what the trophy looks like? I think it was like Greg Wyshynski or somebody asked him, like, do you know like what the world, like, do you know what it looks like? And he was like, oh yeah, and he just started describing the old trophy that they're not playing for, and this, it was pretty funny.
Okay. Worst day to be downtown Vancouver minding your own damn business. Friday night or Sunday afternoon?
Oh, it's gonna be Friday night's gonna be the most hectic, I think, right? Like there's don't you think that first night of Taylor Swift will be like the biggest buzz? There'll be more buzz for that than the second two. And the Canucks play at the same time. Like that on Sunday the Canucks play a matinee and Taylor Swift's on it at 7:00. So yeah, I think that the chaotic, and then you also have rush hour traffic, Friday night traffic. That's going to be for sure the most chaotic part of the night. I do think everyone needs to take a breath on the Taylor. People talk about Taylor Swift stuff as if there's going to be like 100,000 people at BC Place. Like there's a max capacity at BC Place. Like there's not going to be.
I know, but people want to absorb the outside. Not many Grey Cup revelers go and just absorb the exterior of BC Place. Taylor Swift fans do.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I arrived to the Grey Cup 2 hours before kickoff. It was shoulder to shoulder through Terry Fox Plaza with people getting in because I think people recognized, want to make sure I'm in the venue for kickoff.
Yeah.
If you don't think those Swifties will be arriving in the venue well before the concert, you're crazy. I am so pleased that they took the official merch down to Canada Place.
Away from it, yeah.
Because a year ago this summer, July, we go down to the Blue Jays in Seattle. She's playing next door at Lumen. The merch was there, and you know how big the stadium district is there. The merch was there. We're talking a 1 p.m. first pitch on that Saturday, and there were thousands of Swifties in line for the merch. Like, it was a scene of humanity as a sold-out baseball game was going on alongside just the people there for the merch, let alone the concert. So don't you underestimate those Swifties, Rob. They will fill up Robson.
I was at that game in Seattle too. I was there, but it was fine. We walked to the game.
No, it's fine because they have a ton of space around those stadiums, Rob. We don't have that space around our stadium. Like you're talking Robson Street. These Swifties are gonna close Robson Street. Like the police may have an idea of where they're starting the closure on Robson Street, and you watch, the Swifties will come and they'll be like, "Oh, we better move the barricades a few blocks north of here because there's no way you're going to be able to contain the masses who are heading down to the
This is the weekend early. They should have started drone taxi cabs. Like this should be the test weekend for people flying into the area and dropping off.
We really should have had beaming technology available for this weekend.
Alas, no.
Rob, you enjoy. I look forward to all the content on the Daily Hive.
It's going to be the place to be.
Taylor Swift. I already am going to the Daily. I saw the story you guys did yesterday. Did she release tickets last night, or there were inside? She did.
Yeah, guys, my TikTok algorithm is all goofy right now, so I'm getting like I got like the Taylor Swift ticket experts in my algorithm. She released I think like a small drop yesterday, and yeah. But no, they've got people like taking video from like the neighboring towers beside BC Place. You can see in those little windows, and they're like, the chairs are now being set up on the floor and all these things. So and if I'm not mistaken, the police in the city have said if you don't have a ticket, don't come down here. Yeah, they're fencing the outside of the building. Well, and that's fine, but I don't think there's any stopping Swifties. Like, I think there are thousands of people with it in their head. I just want to go down to the stadium district, and I just want to hear the boom emanating from BC Place.
Yeah, they'll do that.
Yeah,
they'll do that for sure.
But unlike any other artist, Blake.
Yeah. No. Like, you never see anything like this.
No.
Good luck to everybody.
Yeah. Good luck to you too, Rob. Thanks for this.
Thanks, guys.